This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi friends! This week's video is a part 2 of trying out cool coloring techniques with every art medium that I can think of. Well, within reason. I mean, technically sand is an art medium, but I don't want to color with that. Okay, so 5 art mediums. I'm trying 5 different art supplies to color with. Last week we tried out the embroidery technique and the glitch effect, so if you want to see that, go check out this video. And this week, we're going to try out 2 more techniques, so let's just get started. First, we're going to try this neon effect. To try this out, first I'm going to pull out this coloring book from Grabby. I really like this for testing techniques out because it has very simple pictures, so it doesn't take forever or overwhelm me. Also, this coloring book is amazing for alcohol markers, which is what I'm going to start with. For this, I'm going to start with 3 different shades of each color. So I have a light, a medium, and a dark orange, and a light, a medium, and a dark green. There is a lot of disagreements about this technique online, and one of those is whether you work from light to dark or whether you go from dark to light. After some really messy testing, for this example, I'm going to work from lightest to darkest. So I'm taking my lightest colors and going around each black line on both sides of it. And I actually think that it looks really cute just like this, and you could totally just leave it like that. But for the full effect, I am going to go around both sides of that outline with the medium color, and then both sides of that with the darkest color. The important part here is to make sure that your lines follow the original black line. Sometimes, especially on curves, your line can get a little flattened out after a couple of colors, and sharp corners can get kind of rounded. Or sometimes you just make a mistake and add a bump where there wasn't one. The end result is going to look much better if you maintain that original shape. Once all of those lines are done, we're going to color the entire background black. This is really going to make the colors pop. I also filled in the insides of the carrots and the leaves where I did too much of the darkest colors. Okay, now I could just leave it like this with the black outlines in the center still because that does look really cool. But there are 2 other ways to do the bulb part of the neon light that I'm going to show you. I'm going to leave this first carrot just like this with the black outline in the middle. And then I'm going to start on the farthest right because I'm left-handed and I will for sure smudge everything. So I'm going to take a white paint marker or a white gel pen warmed up with body heat, of course, and I'm going to go over the whole black outline. This looks like a very bright, blinding neon light. Then, for this middle carrot, I'm only going to do a thin white line down the center of the outline, leaving black on either side of it. So this looks like an older, more burnt out neon bulb. So which of these 3 do you like best? I've tried all of them so many times and I genuinely can't decide which one I like best. I still have one more neon option to show you, but first let's talk about today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes ranging from art and design to film and video. They even have classes to help you spark your creativity, like this Creative Toolkit class by Esteban Gast. Sometimes I get so overwhelmed that my mind goes absolutely blank, but Esteban breaks down the science of creativity and offers some techniques that can be used regardless of which medium you choose to create in. Skillshare has tons of classes taught by industry experts for all skill levels, so I can dive in with no experience and learn at my own pace. Because there are so many different classes, it can be hard to know where to start, but Skillshare has created learning paths, curated class lists meant to be taken in order to build on a topic and help you improve even faster. I recently started this Adobe Fresco learning path to get some more experience with digital art. I'm such a fan of Skillshare, and I want to give you the chance to check them out too. That's why the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. For this next page, I'm going to show you how you can do this with a white background. While it's pretty easy to color the background of the page black with alcohol markers or paint markers, doing it with any other art supply will be pretty time consuming and probably won't end up looking as nice. So I chose this page in Creative Paula's book Loved because it's a pretty simple design. And to color this, I'm going to start with the object most in front of the design, which is this cat. And this one I'm going to make purple. And I'm only going to use 2 shades for this, starting with the darker shade on the inside up against the outline. And then I'm going to follow that up with a lighter shade. Of course, I was mostly done with this cat before I realized that I didn't put anything under it. I guess I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that page at some point. And after this purple cat is done and has his blinding white lines, I'm going to do the same for this other cat with blue. And then, very last, I'm going to do the heart in the background. And that's it. There are a couple of weird spots where the lines kind of overlap in color, like the blue cat's ear where it goes behind the purple cat, but overall, I think it's pretty cute. So, of course, now we need to test out this technique with other art supplies. Rather than do a whole page for each, I'm going to divide one page into quarters so that we can really compare. The first square up here, I'm going to do with water-based markers. I have a sort of weird assortment of different brands and qualities because most of these I don't really have by choice. They were forced on me. No, just kidding, but most of these I got from subscription boxes. I started, just like before, doing the objects closest to the foreground and working my way back. I did the darkest color first and then outlined that with a lighter color. And then finally colored over the black lines with a white pen. The next corner, I used gel pens and fine liners. So we'll just call it miscellaneous pens. I wanted to use gel pens since the tips are larger, but I struggled finding the right colors and getting the dang gel pens to work. The colored gel pens that I have are cheap ones from Five Below, and they don't get used much, so I think they're holding a grudge. I tried every hack that I could find to get them to work, and they really just gave me the finger. But either way, it has the same effect as the fine liners, and I just wanted to show that you don't have to have the same art supplies that everybody else uses. You can still make cool art. Heck, I've seen people make insanely cool art with just Bic pens. I can't do it, but some people can. This bottom left corner, I'm going to do paint markers. My color choices, especially on the red hearts, are not my favorite, but I did try my best to keep the colors consistent. For the puddle down here, I went with pink, because I guess the clouds are like raining the hearts, so the puddle is the dead hearts pulled together. The one thing that I'm really loving about the paint markers is that they cover the black outlines so well. So it really makes the individual objects look more separate and 3D, especially when you add the white marker lines that no longer all connect. The last corner down here is going to be the colored pencils. I tried to pick colors that match, but each square is already so different. And the test isn't really about matching the colors, it's about doing the technique with different media, but it would be pretty cool if they matched. The colored pencils are by far the fastest to use, well, after the markers, but much faster than the pens or paint markers. You would really think that the paint markers would be quick, and maybe other paint markers would be, but I spent a lot of time fighting with the flow of this paint. And in comparison, I'm just flying through with these colored pencils. So this page is done. Which one do you think looks best? I almost think either the water-based markers or maybe the colored pencils. Tough call, tough call. The next technique I'm going to show you is this glitter technique. And I am not going to do an entire page as glitter, so I'm just starting by coloring most of this page as I normally would. I did choose a couple of different palette cards since I couldn't find just one with enough colors. I figured these two pinks match, so the rest of the colors should be able to go together. Now, I am going to do these strawberries as glittery. So to start, I have 4 different pinks getting progressively darker. I'm going to start with a base coat of the lightest color making sure to keep wet ink touching wet so there's no streaks. Not that it matters because you won't be able to see them, but I will know that they're there. Then I'm going to take the second lightest color and start making a ton of dots. You're going to need way more than you think you will, but luckily you can always add more. With markers, it's so easy to just keep tapping away to adjust it. The dots are pretty close, but not really on top of each other. We want it to be about 50-50 of the lightest color showing and this second color. Then I'm going to make it a little denser to one side because that's where the shadow would be. We're going to assume the light is coming from the left, so the right side will be in shadow. Now onto the third color, getting a little sparser on the left side and much more dense and close together on the right side. I am continually leaning back and looking at this from far away or squinting a little bit because it can be kind of easy to focus too much and just get lost in the dots. I really like this technique because it's very easy to adjust the color and blend it out. After all of the strawberries are filled in, I'm going to take a white gel pen or a paint marker and add white dots. I add them everywhere because even in shadow, glitter will catch the light and reflect, but they get more dense on the left side where the light hits. The last step, which just really takes it over the top, is to add those big ding shinies. You know, like pow, shining right in your eye. I like to add them in different sizes, even down to a few little tiny crosses. And then, even once this step is done, I can't help going back and adding more dots or sparkles here and there. It's very hard to stop. Alright, to test the rest of the art supplies, I'm going to divide another picture into 4 quadrants. And I'm going to start again with water-based markers. I'm still going to go with 4 different shades of each color, and again, this is such a mix of different markers. I have some expensive Tombow markers that came in subscription boxes, some old Target brand markers that I've had for forever, and even some leftover Crayola markers that I stole from my classroom. The base layers are pretty streaky, but like I said, that doesn't matter. Once I add the third and fourth colors, you can't tell at all. Again, I'm having the light come from the left side, because I kind of always seem to pick that side as the light in my pictures. And then when I added the white dots, I decided to overlap them onto the outline because then it looks like the glitter is really reflecting everywhere, and I really like that. I'm going to wait to do the large sparkles till the end. Next, I'm going to do fine liners since I have way more colors of them and they're easier to dab a million times than other pens. I did eliminate the base color, so I'm only doing 3 colors and I'm only doing dots. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to tell the difference when it's done. This quadrant is not my favorite in the end, just because I like larger looking glitter dot particles, and short of drawing a million tiny circles, which I am not going to do, there's just no way to make these fine liners make bigger dots. Also, these do take longer than the other supplies because the tips are so small, but you also have a lot of control over where you want the color to be the strongest, and you can make the shade change much more gradual. Also, the ink flow was consistent and I didn't have to keep trying to fight with the pen to get it to work again, like the gel pens that I have. On the bottom left again is paint markers. And again, for this one, I eliminated that lightest base layer and just went in with dots from the lightest color. I did have to wait for the paint to dry in between shades, so I ended up jumping back and forth between colors. But paint markers are a great media for this because, unlike other supplies, if you accidentally go too dark, you can lighten it back up with dots from the lighter colors. The last section is colored pencils, and I did go back to using 4 colors for this and coloring a base layer with the lightest color. Stabbing at the paper to make dots wasn't really working because as the pencil dulled, it wasn't showing up as dark, and I wasn't about to sharpen it every 30 seconds. Now, there's no way that I'm going to color a million tiny circles, So the easiest and fastest method that I found was to sort of stab at the paper with the pencil at an angle. Then the pencil makes more like tiny little hash marks than dots, and it ends up a bit blurrier than I prefer, but it can be done, and it still didn't take as long as the fine liners. So this is how we're looking. After each individual section is done, I'm actually kind of astonished at how well they blend together. So now it's time to add the large blingy stars. Ooh, I love this part so much. It just really makes the glitter come alive. It's really hard to stop adding these sparkles. I did color the rest of the picture in very simply with alcohol markers so that it would look finished. Ooh, I love this technique. It's so pretty. I honestly think all of the sections look great and pretty similar, but I think either markers or paint are my favorite, just for the ease of use. So, what do you think? Are you sick of coloring videos, or are there other techniques that you want to see? Other art supplies you want me to try? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.